ready for this? It's showtime. Lights, fans, action. Oh yeah, we've got action. Faster, tougher, more ferocious. There's nothing like League. This is the Betfred Super League.
Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped my ear off. What do you think?
Hello again, everyone. Well done. You found the best rugby league podcast knocking around right now. Welcome along to Eddie and Stevo, the podcast, with grateful thanks for their support, as always, from the game's major sponsors, Betfred. Well, for Wigan, it really was Viva Las Vegas, wasn't it? Not so for Warrington, and certainly not for the English women. But nonetheless, a spectacular and historic weekend. And we can't really start anywhere else this week, can we? I must say, Stevo, it looked a brilliant occasion, a big crowd buoyed by the English fans. I think 10,000 or more of them who made their way across. What did you make of it all?
Fantastic. That's the only word I can say. And you talk about getting a lift for our game, and it's come in another country. And why not? Look, last year, they weren't on the main channels. This year, with the help of Fox TV, Lachlan Murdoch has done everything he could to ensure that at least the Americans would see it live. And that's helped our game. It's a big ask. There are so many major sports in the USA, but at least we've put our toe in the water. And maybe in years to come, we'll be able to put a leg in there and maybe a full body in there. In other words, there was 15,000 estimated people from America that went to the game, having no idea, having no knowledge about the rules, and yet it was a huge success. And let's build on it.
Well, that would be utopia. Now, you are still back home in Australia. What did the Australian media and the fans down there think of it? Were they happy that Super League is now involved?
Oh, of course. Look, Volandi has made it quite clear that he wants to help Super League. He wants to make sure that we get back to international competition. And this is a great start. It's not going to be easy. People aren't just going to say, oh, I'm a great fan of rugby league. It'll take a while. We mentioned it last week. How many years? Was it 25 years that it took for soccer, the world's biggest sport? It took them 20-odd years to establish themselves in the USA. It might take us even longer, but at least we've started.
And the thing is, the Super League is really keen to be involved again in the future. Matty Peet, the Wigan coach, has suggested maybe the whole derby would be a great fixture to add to Las Vegas in 2026. And in the immediate aftermath of Saturday, it's emerged that Super League will be back next year. The NRL have already issued the invitation. Hull KR, Leeds, St Helens, all have already thrown their caps into the ring. And Lee Leopards also considering a bid to be involved. And Stevo, it's an absolute wonderful thing that there's even talk that the World Club Challenge could be played in Vegas, as officials have admitted it was an oversight not to identify the issue that cropped up this year, because both the champions in the Northern Hemisphere, Wigan, and the Southern Hemisphere, Penrith, were involved last weekend.
Okay, they've admitted their mistake. It will definitely be on next year. I've got no doubt about that. Whether they'll say, well, we'll play last year, but I think they'll probably have to wait and see who are the champions down under and the champions in the UK. We've got to build on it. And I'm glad that at least they've admitted they made a mistake. They couldn't fit Wigan versus Penrith in. It would have been a fantastic clash. But what about Wigan? I mentioned they'll take some beating this season, but a real kick up the backside for Warrington. Okay, they came back, scored 24 points, but really 48 points against them. They put the queue on the rack. And talking of putting the queue on the rack, the English women lost 90 points to 4. And let's now dig deep into the reasons why those two results came that way. In other words, we have to build for the future. We have to make sure that our development in all other clubs, including clubs like Warrington and all the others in the Super League, we've got to ensure that we have a very strong competition like they do down under.
Well, we do. And people will look for excuses, particularly in this part of the world. I mean, George Williams, the Warrington skipper, afterwards issued an apology for the performance to the Warrington fans. They were well off defensively. I don't think Sam Burgess's late arrival had that much to do with it at all, but the Wolves have got a lot to do with it. A lot of work to do, rather, apart from getting over the jet lag before they face Wakefield at home this weekend.
Well, as I said, Eddie, there's nothing wrong with getting a kick up the backside. We've all gone through that. We've all had situations whereby you think to yourself, I didn't play my best. I didn't do my best when I should have brought a good result. And they didn't. And that's why we have to get some more progress. We keep saying it. Look, Vlandy is one of these guys that wants to take on the world. He's one of these guys that wants to make our game world famous. Not in just a few countries, but world famous, Eddie. We've got to make it. And when you get someone like that, give him the opportunity to make our game even better. Over the past few years, we've struggled, especially in the UK. Here is a man that's making it quite clear. Nearly every week he's saying, if Super League needs help, we'll be there. We'll be there for international games. You can't ignore this man.
You can't ignore him at all. And Matty Johns, the former star, has also added his voice to the growing clamour to get the NRL involved in the British game. Again, the name of Peter Vlandy as the man to help the game up here has come along. John says Vlandys should come over for a 3 to 6 month stint to help out what he claims Vlandys could do and could do to the competition up here. Do you think he will? Do you think he will come north and have a bash?
I don't think he'll come there for a long term, but maybe to come over for in the off season for 3 months to have a look at it. At least sit down with IMG and say, where is the future? What are you doing? Etc. and so forth. This man has got runs on the board. It's as simple as that. And you can't ignore it. Look, when Super League was formulated, everyone said, Maurice Lindsay, oh, well, why did he make the decision? He made that decision the same as what Vlandy wants to do in the UK. Everyone said, oh, why would Maurice Lindsay be the man to say that we formulate Super League? If we hadn't formulated Super League, we would have still been playing amateur.
Yeah, and the game might have gone. The game might easily have gone west. I mean, you talk about Peter Vlandy's influence. He's already said, or at least it's already been announced, that Wembley, Headingley and Everton, the brand new stadium down on the docks in Liverpool, Everton's new stadium, will host this year's Ashes tests. Now, that is fantastic. That's been announced already in the immediate aftermath of what happened in Vegas.
It's a start, Eddie. I mean, we've had test matches down in London before in rugby league, etc., and so forth. We've had them at the big football stadiums. Yes, we can do that. We've got good stadiums. We've got the opportunity now. But I would imagine that 15,000 people from the USA would have said, "Hey, man, that was something really good."
I didn't know you had such American blood in you, but you sounded very convincing.
No, my top set are a bit loose.
Drop down.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing as well, the viewing figures, 340,000 on Sky, best ever for a regular season fixture. Fantastic. There was great interest. I just hope we can build on it now, Stevo. You know, it's a great occasion for rugby league. Nathan Cleary showing again why he is the best in the world. But this embarrassing defeat for the English women, they lost in record-breaking fashion to the Aussie Gillaroos. As you said before, 90 points to 4. First meeting since 2017. The English players left in tears afterwards, and the coach calling for a review of the women's game in the United Kingdom.
You know, sometimes a big loss. I remember at Penrith, they lost to Manly 70 points to 7 in the NRL. 70 points to 7. And yet they've become champions always on the trot. Yes. I mean, it's just amazing. Sometimes you need something like that to change it. And I'll say it again. I hope that IMG, right, are ringing Vlandy as we speak and saying, "Come over there, help us." Nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't. I don't want to bring us back to earth with a bump, but 48 hours before the Vegas extravaganza, the razzmatazz, Salford, they suffered their third defeat of the season by 42 points to 0. Turns out the players weren't paid on time before the game at Hull Kingston Rovers. This takeover by this Swiss businessman has been ratified by the RFL, of course. So Salford were able to feel all of their fit stars. But apparently, as all the money was coming from overseas, there had to be relevant checks carried out here, and there wasn't enough time to do that before the kickoff. Salford players weren't paid. They still, as we speak, haven't been paid. They're on strike now. They won't report for training. Dear God, Stevo, what a mess this is.
Well, we're talking about the future and what we want to do, and we're going to take on the world. And once again, they need to kick up the backside. You've got to make sure that if anybody's investing, that the money's going to be up front. You don't wait until the season started.
You can't blame the club, Stevo, can you? Because they thought the money was there, safe, sorted, in the bank. I mean,
of course.
I just can't understand what's gone on. I don't know the legalities, and I wouldn't want to begin even talking about the complexities of this sort of deal. But for goodness sake, someone should get a grip, shouldn't they?
Well, they should have got a grip many months ago. And look, the Super League should have been strong and just say, listen, you've not given us definition in regards to you have that money in the bank. So therefore, you will not start the season. In other words, we would have avoided this embarrassment. And maybe when you say, and all the fans would have said, oh, well, if they can't play if they don't sort it out. We're telling the world, rugby league, greatest game in the world. Of course, you and I know that. It's the greatest game of all. We know that. And yet, at the bottom, we can't get something through.
Well, Salford have got to play Castleford at the weekend. They travel to Castleford. And there's a chance that we might be back in the situation, if things aren't organised in the next 48 hours or so, that they go back to playing their reserve team. And the Lord alone knows what's going to happen if that's the case. I mean, Castleford will be rubbing their hands. They need a win as well. But Salford at the moment, bottom of the table, Stevo, 0 points and 150 points against on the for and against column. I mean,
disgraceful.
Oh, honestly.
It's disgraceful. And yet, last season, the poor old London Broncos,
Yeah.
even before a ball was kicked, they knew they were going to be relegated. And yet, we've allowed Salford to do what they've done. You can't just say, well, at least IMG sorted it all out, didn't they? Which they did. In other words, London Broncos, bye-bye. Now we're left with this situation where it's embarrassing.
Well, it's embarrassing, and it's also, when you think back to the fact that, London identified as a target for the test matches, Wembley Stadium as the venue for the Ashes tests with Everton and Headingley. A further postscript to the Las Vegas weekend, the NRL apparently now keen to bring some of its games to the UK. And they're saying it could happen as early as 2029. London identified as a target. Wembley Stadium, again, the venue. Interesting quote here. The sport has a history in London with test matches played at Wembley Stadium, and the NRL wants to reignite that interest in the city as London Broncos are currently plying their trade in London. It's a shame that IMG's now accepted proposals about grading of the clubs didn't recognise that history. But I suppose in many ways that's a debate for another time.
Well, I could go on for probably 2 to 3 hours in regards to what perhaps should have happened. But it was laid bare, as far as I'm concerned, before a ball was kicked last season.
Yeah, they were gone.
That the Broncos were gone.
Yeah.
Now, to my way of thinking, if that's part of the development and the enhancement in regards of our game, then I'm going mad. A lot of people perhaps would agree with that. But the thing is, Eddie...
I couldn't argue.
Yeah. Look, we're at a stage, we mentioned in regards to, in 2028, right? Papua New Guinea will have a team in the NRL. The Australian government are putting in $600 million to ensure that the trading situation within Papua New Guinea and Australia is going to help everything. And nearly half of that amount will be going to set up a team in Papua New Guinea. They've made it quite clear, 2028. And of course, the journalists have gone absolutely crackers about this in regards to the fact that Nathan Cleary's romance with Mary Fowler, Mary Fowler's mother was born and bred in Kira Kira in Papua New Guinea. And there is talk of when Nathan Cleary finishes his contract at Penrith Panthers, that he will then go over to be the captain of the new Papua New Guinea side. And he probably will get quite a few Australians to go with him, mainly due to the fact that the PNG government had made it quite clear that any amount of money paid to the players, no tax.
Oh,
now, currently in Australia, all the big players with big money, they nearly have to pay 40% in tax. Now, I reckon there could be a stampede from some of the older players looking for retirement to a country that's not going to, you don't have to pay any tax. All those wonderful shillings and pennies will be yours. What an attraction.
I hope that you've got the for sale sign ready for your mansion in Sydney, because I can see you heading off to Papua New Guinea anytime soon. I mean, $600 million to set up a rugby league team in Papua New Guinea. You pay tax, do you, down there? Your money will be used for this? Your personal money?
I seem to have lost you there, Eddie.
Of
course I paid tax.
Oh, well, that's a shame.
Of course.
That makes
it's
a
as simple as that. Simple as that.
Honestly,
Look,
I mean, amazing deal. Amazing deal.
Well, half of that, they're estimating that 300 million will be pumped in to ensure that the development of junior development, etc., and so forth. It's not just about giving them all that money, because 300 million of it will be in regards to trade affairs, etc., and so forth, building a far more association with Australia and PNG. And it's just amazing how the journalists in this country, PNG, well, Mary Fowler's mother, etc., etc., etc. But it has got a response from the Penrith club, who have made it quite clear. They said, well, any approach, we'll just extend Nathan Cleary's
contract. Yeah,
his contract. But that's the way of the world these days, Eddie.
It is. And just to clarify, Mary Fowler is the Manchester City footballer, isn't she? She plays in the Women's Super League over here.
And a World Cup winner. I mean, you've got two of the greatest sporting personalities that live in Australia. Well, Mary Fowler lives in the UK at the moment. And Nathan Cleary, I reckon his miles, that is his air miles, have been topped up quite often, because they don't see each other much, but they go off all over the place to meet up. And why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
And listen, anything that can give publicity to our game is an advantage. And we want advantage. We don't want Salford episodes. We want to get rid of that. Indeed. We want to make sure. Yeah. And listen, everybody's got this euphoria about the future. 12 months ago, Eddie, I was concerned and I was worried about the future of Super League. I really was thinking to myself, there's not enough money to keep it going. Will we have to go back to semi-professional? We were looking to go in that way. And here we have, and we keep saying it, we have a man called Vlandy that wants to change all that. So bring him over.
Yeah, let's wait and see. Yeah, let's wait and see if he comes. It'd be good. It'd be good if he comes over. We must get him on the podcast if he does. We'll try and make sure of that. If he comes across, we're at him. Talking to Super League, Stevo, we've talked about Salford, bottom of the table. Hull Kingston Rovers, Stevo, they're enjoying their best ever start to a Super League season. They, I think, have gone so well this year. 3 wins in a row. Danny Richardson. Now, remember him, the golden boy at St Helens not long ago? Well, he's been hampered by injury in recent years. His 2022 and 2023 seasons were written off at Castleford. He's only played 3 times for Willie Peters at Hull KR. He was on loan at Huddersfield, recalled because Mikey Lewis and Tyrone May were injured in the halves. He played last Thursday. Rhys Martin injured early on, and the news about him is he's going to be out for the next 4 months, by the way. Anyway, he was injured. Richardson took the goal-kicking duties. He knocked 6 from 7. Now then, it just shows you never know what's going to happen in this game. You have to stay positive in adversity if you possibly can. Well done, Danny Richardson.
Yeah, look, there are great stories, especially down here in Australia as well, in regards to people coming back from long-term injuries. There's a lot of problems in the opening rounds for many of the clubs. In fact, most of the clubs have probably 2 or 3 of their star players that will not start the season. And it's very difficult. And I just wonder, is the development in training, everyone wants to be even more fitter and strong and, make sure you've got the strength and everything. Maybe we're pushing the players too much. I don't know. But it's got to be looked at as well, because the amount of injuries that are sustained nearly every week makes me wonder: are the training methods correct?
I wonder. I mean, do you blame the conditioners and the strength and conditioning coaches for all of this, or what is it?
No.
Or is it just an accident of the game?
Yeah, no, you can't blame any individual person, but um, I suppose in many ways you're a toned athlete, and sometimes if you just go over that mark, uh, it can bring you down. Have an injury and all that sort of thing. So it's look, you can't point fingers here, there, and everywhere, but maybe overall, when you take into account the amount of, if you just look at all the teams in Australia, um, two, three, sometimes four of their big stars are not starting the season. This is not halfway through the season. This is before the season kicks off, which is this weekend in Australia.
Food for thought. Food for thought.
Well, there's got to be some reason, or is it just bad luck? Look, the future is looking bright.
It is, after last weekend.
Especially after last weekend, and
Yep.
we've got development to come through. We've already mentioned, okay, it was embarrassing, the English women losing 90 points to 4. Warrington, they were unhappy. They didn't put on the display. Even people might say, oh, well, we got 24 points in the end. But that was not the issue. They just could not match that Wigan side, who I must say were outstanding.
Yeah, they were.
They just every single player did their job.
Even the great Andrew Voss, Stevo, was calling for a Wigan-Penrith match, a rematch, because he thought that Wigan had played so well. There you go. It even impressed Vossi. Mind you, he couldn't stop mentioning all the Aussies, the Bevan Frenches, the Jay Fields and all that. He was right on top of it all, wasn't he? Banging the drum for the Australians.
Yeah, but of course. I mean, he's probably one of the most famous commentators that we have in Australia. And he doesn't hedge his bets. He gets involved. He says as near to the truth as you can get. And that's very rare for commentators, Eddie. You and I should know.
we never told untruths. We never told untruths. Look, last thing. Here is a fantastic bit of news. The lovely Lindsay Burrow, she is going to run the London Marathon this year in memory of Rob on April the 27th. Oh. Isn't that fabulous? She's going to run with her brother, Mark, and it's all, of course, for charity. Kevin Sinfield, with his £15 million raised for Motor Neurone Disease Association. And Lindsay now, she's going on the London Marathon in memory of the great Rob Burrow.
Fantastic. I'm hoping to be in London at the time of the London Marathon. I've watched it for so many years, but this will have something extra special.
When you've started on about you'll be there and you're going to be watching, and why don't you get your running shoes out and get yourself on the treadmill and get yourself out there? Get going. Why don't you go and run the London Marathon as well?
I'll tell you this much, Eddie. I'm 78 years of age. At 78, I can't even put my own shoes on. Never mind running. I have trouble walking, and as I say, it's difficult for me to bend down and tie my own shoelaces.
I can understand. I got a birthday card this year from somebody, and on the front of it said, "Another year closer to having to wear Velcro shoes." And I think he's absolutely right. Are you in the Velcros yet?
Slip-ons, Eddie. Slip-ons.
You'll be in your slippers. You'll be in your slippers.
No, slip-ons.
I know, but I'm saying slippers. You'll be in your slippers to welcome Lindsay Burrow at the finishing line of the London Marathon this year. Brilliant. I'll look forward to the pictures.
And before you go, Eddie, I think that you and I should also offer a very good donation.
We will. Absolutely, we will. 100%. Top man, well done. Good to talk to you again. I don't know what we're going to talk about next weekend, but there's loads of matches in Super League, so I'm sure there'll be something that'll throw itself up to us. And look forward to talking to you in 7 days' time. Take it easy.
All the best, top man.